Every year, thousands of cases cross the desks of American law enforcement. Most are solved. The evidence leads somewhere, the story makes sense. But some cases never close. Tonight we examine 3 American mysteries that remain unsolved, not because investigators didn't try, not because the evidence disappeared, but because what happened defies every logical explanation. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Story 1. The Yuba County Five. February 24, 1978. 5 men from Yuba City, California drive to a basketball game in Chico, about 50 miles away. It's a Friday night. They're excited. They never make it home. Gary Mathias, 25, Bill Sterling, 29, Jack Hewitt, 24, Ted Wire, 32, and Jack Madruga, 30. 4 of them have mild intellectual disabilities. Gary Mathias has schizophrenia, but his medication keeps him stable. They're all part of a local program, and they're close friends. They attend the game. Their team wins. Witnesses see them leaving around 10 p.m., in good spirits, heading to their car. The plan is simple. Drive home, get ready for their own basketball game the next day, a game they'd been talking about for weeks. They never arrive. And what happens next makes no sense. The drive home is straightforward, 50 miles, one highway. But instead of going home, they drive 70 miles in the opposite direction, up into the Plumas National Forest, higher and higher into the snow-covered mountains, on a road they have no reason to be on. 4 days later, on February 28th, a Forest Service employee makes a discovery. Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego, abandoned on a mountain road, miles from anywhere, covered in fresh snow. The vehicle was in perfect working condition, keys in the ignition, quarter tank of gas, no mechanical problems, no signs of struggle, no signs of accident. Inside the car, nothing unusual, no blood, no signs of panic, personal belongings still there. But the men? Gone. A fresh snowfall had covered most tracks, but investigators found some footprints leading away from the car, not running, walking, heading further up the mountain, deeper into the wilderness. But here's what makes no sense. All 5 men were familiar with this area. They'd been here before. They knew how dangerous these mountains were in winter, and they all knew one critical fact. They weren't dressed for it. Light jackets, street shoes, one wearing only a thin windbreaker. A massive search begins. National Guard, hundreds of volunteers, search dogs, helicopters, but the snow keeps falling. Weeks pass. Nothing. Then on June 4th, over 3 months later, when the spring thaw finally clears the snow, a forest ranger makes a horrific discovery. 19.5 miles from the abandoned car, up a steep mountain road, there's a small Forest Service trailer, a shelter stocked with supplies for winter emergencies. Inside, the body of Ted Wire. The deceased appeared to have been inside the trailer for at least 8 weeks. Cause of death? Hypothermia and starvation. Here's where the mystery deepens. The trailer was stocked with supplies. Canned food, propane heaters, blankets, matches, everything needed to survive. Investigators found that someone had opened several cans of food. Some had been eaten, but dozens more remained untouched. The propane heaters had never been turned on, despite the freezing temperatures. But here's what's truly baffling. Ted Wire had been bedridden. Someone had placed 8 heavy sheets over him. Someone had laid out his shoes, perfectly, beside the bed. Someone had been taking care of him. But Ted's feet showed severe frostbite. He'd lost both legs to gangrene before he died, which means he'd been in the trailer for weeks, slowly dying, surrounded by food and heat. Why didn't he eat more? Why didn't he use the heaters? And who had been taking care of him until they too disappeared?
The discovery of Ted's body reignites the search. Within days, more remains are found. Bill Sterling's body, about 200 yards from the trailer. Jack Hewitt's remains nearly a mile away in a different direction, and Jack Madruga's skull miles away with no other remains nearby. All showed signs of hypothermia. All had been exposed to the elements for months, but their locations raise new questions. Why were they so far apart? Why was Ted the only one who made it inside the trailer? Gary Mathias, the fifth man, is never found. Not his body, not his remains, not a trace. To this day, he's simply gone. This is what keeps investigators up at night. These men drove 70 miles in the wrong direction, abandoned a working car, walked 20 miles uphill in the snow, undressed, reached a shelter with supplies, and then didn't use them. Nothing about it makes sense. The theories are endless. Were they chased by someone? Did they see something that terrified them? Was Gary Mathias off his medication experiencing a psychotic episode? Did they encounter something or someone that sent them fleeing into the mountains? But no theory explains why they left a working car, why they walked 20 miles uphill in the snow, why Ted was cared for but not saved, why the others scattered across the wilderness, why 5 men who had everything to live for died with survival just within reach.
Story 2. The Circleville Letters. Circleville, Ohio, 1976. Population 12,000. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where secrets are hard to keep, or so people thought. It starts with a letter, then another, then dozens more, all anonymous, all typed, all revealing secrets that should have been impossible to know. The letters are targeted, personal. They contain information about people's private lives, their affairs, their secrets, information only the people involved should know. One of the first targets is Mary Gillespie, a school bus driver. The letters accuse her of having an affair with Gordon Massey, the school superintendent. They threaten to expose her, to destroy her reputation, to harm her family. I know what you've been doing. I know where you go. I'm watching. If you don't stop, everyone will know. Mary denies the affair, but the letters don't stop. They get more specific, more threatening, more personal. Mary's husband, Ron Gillespie, receives letters too. Letters telling him his wife is unfaithful. Letters pushing him toward violence. Letters that seem designed to provoke. August 19th, 1977. Ron Gillespie is driving on a rural road when he sees something odd. A homemade sign nailed to a post with a crude message about his wife. He stops, gets out of his truck, approaches the sign. A booby trap. Someone had rigged a gun to fire when the sign was moved. Ron Gillespie is killed instantly. This was premeditated murder. Someone knew Ron would see that sign. Someone knew he'd stop. Someone wanted him dead. The town is horrified. This isn't just anonymous letters anymore. This is murder. And the question becomes, who knew Ron well enough to predict his actions? Who hated him or someone in his life enough to kill? The investigation focuses on Mary's brother-in-law, Paul Fresher. He and Ron had tensions. He'd been questioned about the letters before, and handwriting analysis suggests he might be involved. In 1983, Paul Fresher is convicted of attempted murder related to the booby trap. He's sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison. Case closed. Except for one problem. The letters don't stop. While Paul sits in prison, unable to contact the outside world, new letters continue to arrive. Same typewriter, same style, same intimate knowledge. I told them it wasn't me. I kept telling them,
And then the letters kept coming, and nobody wanted to admit they got the wrong man. In a twisted turn, Paul starts receiving the letters too, taunting letters, letters that prove he couldn't be the sender. Now, when are you going to believe you have the wrong man? It would be awful if something bad happened to your sister. The letters continue for almost 20 years. Dozens of people receive them. The targets change, the secrets revealed multiply, but the sender remains unknown. The FBI gets involved. They analyze the letters, the typewriter, the paper, the postmarks. They find nothing conclusive. Same typewriter for years, then suddenly it changes, like the writer got a new machine. But the content, the style, the intimate knowledge, that never changes. This person knows things they shouldn't be able to know. The letters tear the community apart. Neighbors suspect neighbors. Families fracture. Nobody feels safe because the writer knows things, private things, things whispered in confidence, things done in secret. Every suspect who emerges can be ruled out. The timing doesn't work, the access doesn't match, the motivation isn't sufficient. It's as if the letter writer is invisible, everywhere and nowhere at once. Paul Fresher serves his time and is released in 1994, still maintaining his innocence. The letters gradually stop around the same time, but no one knows why. No one is ever charged with writing them. No one ever confesses. Today, the case remains open. The identity of the Circleville letter writer is unknown. Who had access to so many secrets? Who held a grudge deep enough to terrorize a town for 2 decades? Who killed Ron Gillespie? In Circleville, some people still check their mail with apprehension because they remember, and because they know whoever wrote those letters. They were never caught.
Story 3. The Death Valley Germans. July 1996. Death Valley, California. The hottest, driest place in North America. Summer temperatures exceed 120 degrees. The landscape is unforgiving, and it's about to claim 4 lives. Egbert and Cornelia Rimkus, their son Georg, and Georg's girlfriend, Sabine Dries. 4 German tourists on an American road trip. Experienced travelers, intelligent people, about to make a decision that defies understanding. They arrive in Death Valley on July 22nd. It's the peak of summer. Temperatures are extreme, but the park is open. Thousands visit safely every year. The family checks into their motel. They have maps, they have water, they have a rental minivan. On July 23rd, they're seen leaving their motel, heading toward a remote area of the park. They never check out. They're never seen alive again. When they failed to return to Germany, their families raise alarms. The investigation begins. Where did they go? What happened? October 1996. 3 months after they disappeared, their rental minivan is discovered, and the location raises immediate questions. The van is found in a remote canyon, miles from any marked road or trail, stuck in sand, abandoned. But this isn't a wrong turn or accident. This is a deliberate journey into one of the most dangerous areas of Death Valley. The vehicle showed signs of being stuck for days. They'd tried to dig it out, failed, then they walked away, into the desert, in July, in Death Valley. Investigators pieced together their path. They had driven up a rough mining road, then onto trails meant for 4-wheel drive vehicles only, then onto terrain where no vehicle should go, each decision taking them further from help. The next discoveries don't come quickly. Death Valley is vast, the terrain brutal, but slowly searchers find traces. November 1996, 4 months after they vanished, the body of Cornelia Rimkus is found in a canyon 6 miles from the van. She'd traveled in the opposite direction from any help.
February 1999, nearly 3 years later, the remains of Egbert Rimkus are discovered 5 miles from the van, in yet another direction, separated from his wife by miles of desert. October 2009, 13 years after they vanished, the remains of Georg and Sabine are finally located, together but miles away from both parents, in a different canyon entirely. 4 people, 4 different locations, miles apart, each one having walked in a different direction from the abandoned van. Why did they separate? What were they thinking? What drove 4 intelligent people to make every wrong decision possible? Investigators and Death Valley experts have spent decades trying to understand what happened. The evidence paints a picture that defies logic. They had to pass multiple warning signs: not maintained, 4-wheel drive only, no services. They had a 2-wheel drive minivan. They kept going anyway. When the van got stuck, they tried to dig it out. They stayed with it for a while. Then, at some point, they made the decision to walk. Rule 1 in Death Valley: stay with your vehicle. It's visible from the air. It provides shelter. Walking in July heat is essentially suicide. They would have known this. Any rational person would. They left the van with minimal water, in 120-degree heat. And then, most baffling of all, they split up, heading in different directions. Dehydration causes confusion, heat stroke causes irrational behavior, but all 4 people making the same irrational decisions, independently, and then separating? That's unusual, very unusual. Georg and Sabine were found together, suggesting they stayed as a couple, but they went in a completely different direction from either parent. Why? What separated them? What were they looking for? The theories are harsh as the desert itself. Heat-induced psychosis, panic, disorientation, but none fully explain the sequence of decisions. Their cameras were never found. No final photographs to show us what they saw. No journal entries explaining their choices. Just 4 people who walked into the desert and vanished. Death Valley claims lives regularly. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, getting lost. But usually there's a clear chain of events, a single bad decision, an unfortunate accident. But the Death Valley Germans made not one bad choice, but dozens. Every single decision led them deeper into danger. It's as if they were following a plan that made sense only to them. Today, there's a small memorial in Death Valley. 4 names, a warning to others, but no explanation for why 4 experienced travelers drove into a remote canyon, abandoned their vehicle, separated, and walked to their deaths. Some places keep their secrets, and in Death Valley, under the merciless sun, 4 people took their answers with them.
3 American mysteries. 3 cases with evidence, witnesses, and extensive investigations. 3 stories that still have no satisfying answers. 5 men who drove into the mountains for no reason and died with survival within reach. One of them never found. A letter writer who terrorized a town for 20 years, knew everyone's secrets and was never identified. A murder that sent the wrong man to prison while the real killer walked free. 4 travelers who made every wrong decision possible and vanished into the desert, their reasons lost to the heat and sand. These aren't ancient mysteries or foreign legends. These happened in America, in our lifetimes, to real people with families, jobs, and futures. The evidence is preserved. The investigations remain open. Someone, somewhere, might still know something, but with each passing year, the truth becomes harder to reach. We want to believe that every mystery can be solved, that logic and science and investigation will always reveal the truth. But sometimes, despite our best efforts, some questions remain unanswered. 3 true stories, 3 American mysteries, 3 cases that, decades later, still haven't been explained. And somewhere out there, right now, the next unexplainable story is already beginning.